Hello everyone. I just wanted to let you know that I have a new way for you to submit stories. Just head over to the website, MidnightFears.com, register, and you can post your stories. The site's got a new look and feel, and now it's easier to navigate. So please go check it out. You have to be registered to post, but anyone can comment. Registering is free and easy, so don't delay. Thank you all, and now to the story. So this is my first post. And all of this is real, and it really happened to me. I typed this into a Word document before putting it into the text box. I tried to get all the spelling and grammar, but I'm sorry if it's still messed up. If you want more, I do have it. I have a lot more. A little background information. I'm not really religious. I was raised that way by both my parents, but some of the events have changed me, and now I do pray from time to time. But I find it hard to believe in the stuff that I even see myself. I firmly believe that there are ghosts and spirits, etc. But it's just hard to believe, even though I have seen them and what I've experienced in the past. My parents are divorced, and they have been since I was 3. My dad was a drunk, and he was verbally and emotionally abusive to my mom. But he never laid a hand on me or my brother. It all started when I was little, really little. I was maybe 6 years old. And I was at my dad's house, and I was never afraid of the dark, but I always slept with the door open. I just didn't like having it closed. I would wake up randomly at about 2 a.m., normally because I had to pee. My brother was in the bathroom a lot because he was sick and the medicine that he took, so I would go into my dad's room at times. This one time I asked, he was sleepy, but he replied, "Sure, go ahead." So I did my business, and I said goodnight to him as I walked out and closed the bedroom door. As I was in the hall and looking towards my living room, my brother was still in the bathroom, and I thought I saw something in the living room that went into the kitchen. The house layout was the living room was the entrance to the house, and it went straight to the kitchen, but right before the kitchen was the hallway. I went to the living room, and I started patting the wall to try to find the light switch. I flicked it on, and there was nothing there. There's enough lights on to completely see the entire house, and there was absolutely nothing. I just got this weird feeling that there is something behind me, so I turned around fast, and there was nothing there. I thought to myself, there's nothing around. I have to go back to sleep. I have school tomorrow. And my brother comes out of the bathroom and asks what I was doing. I told him that I thought I saw something, and he grumbled and told me to go back to bed. I said to him, okay, but I feel like there's something in the backyard. He grumbles some more and turns the hall light on and tells me to follow him. He goes into the kitchen, he grabs a flashlight, and then he goes to the dining room, and he moves the blinds and says, "Do you see anything?" I said, "No, but what's that?" It was something that was about 6 to 7 feet tall. It was darker than anything else out there, and it seemed out of place. He looked, and then he turned the outside light on. We go outside, and it was dead silent. He asked me if I still see it. I said, "Yeah, but it looks a little further away." He hands me the flashlight, and he told me to keep the light on him, and I do just that. As he starts walking towards where I thought it was, after about 5 minutes, it did seem like forever, he started walking back, and he seemed mad and upset, which is normal for him. But he tells me to go to bed, close my door, and go to sleep. I complain about closing my door, so he grabbed me, and he said forcefully that I should do as he said, or he'll make me do all of his chores. Needless to say, I went to bed. As I laid in bed, I heard him making noises, messing with something in the kitchen and locking everything up and turning the light off. I said my prayers, and I tried to sleep, but I still felt like there was something outside, maybe outside my window. I was scaring myself, I thought, so I just peeked, and I thought I can see that dark figure out by the mailbox. Mind you, it didn't move, and it was dark out. And I couldn't make out any features or anything. It just looked like this really tall, dark figure. So I knocked on the wall that separates our rooms, and he yelled to me to go to sleep. I tried to sleep, but I just couldn't fall asleep at all. I went to school the next day, and I came back to my dad's. Again, I woke up at about 2 a.m. with this strange feeling that I'm being watched. Now remember, I'm 6 years old. So I grabbed one of my toy lightsabers from under my bed, and I turned it on and looked down the hall, just to see the red reflection in a picture at the end of the hall. I looked right at the red reflection from my lightsaber. I stood there looking, but I felt it just didn't feel right. Then something happened, and it instantly got lighter in the room. The front door opened, and I dropped the lightsaber, and my dad asked me what I'm doing from outside. I tell him everything that happened the last night and this night. He was sympathetic. He got into the bed next to me, and he told me not to worry, that I was safe, and that we should pray. So we did, and then he went to bed. I just laid there for what seemed like hours. I couldn't fall asleep, so I decided I was going to play with my Game Boy, and I started looking around for it in the dark. Then I got that feeling again. I turned around to open my door, and the hallway was darker than dark, like just pure blackness. I just stood there and I was scared. I wanted to scream and yell, but I couldn't. I think I knew I would cause trouble if I did. As I was looking in the dark, I saw these white balls. They were like the size of eyes. These eyes were whiter than white, and they were brighter than anything I have ever seen. They really stood out against the dark. I stood there, completely scared and paralyzed. Then I noticed the eyes were moving closer. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. All of a sudden, it stopped. Then I started to hear rumbling noises, kind of like thunder, low thunder. Then the scariest thing I've ever felt in my life just happened. Whatever that was, it said my name. The second after it said my name, it felt like the whole house shook. Just like when thunder hits very close and you lose power. I was able to muster out a scream, and it was loud. I could hear my dad and my brother scurrying and trying to get out of bed to see what was wrong. My eyes were closed, and as I opened them, there was nothing there. My dad ran into the room, and he's asking, "What's going on?" And I just started crying. My brother walked in complaining about me being a little girl and I needed to grow up. My dad yelled at him and told him to go back to bed. I was grateful for that. Reluctantly, I told my dad what I saw. He picked me up in his arms and he carried me to his room, and he let me lay there until I fell asleep. After that night, I always slept with a nightlight. Years went by, and I kind of forgot about this because I was only 6, and I started living with my mom. Now, she's extremely religious and spiritual and has crosses everywhere in her house. And I started spending more and more time with her and my stepdad. Now I'm around 13 or 14. My mom asked me one day if I ever saw anything, like things that weren't there. I told her about the time that I saw my great-grandmother the night she died. My mom nodded, and then she asked if I've ever seen anything else. Maybe something that wanted to harm me. I told her no. I didn't remember that event at the time, and she said good. She served me breakfast, and then I left to go play paintball with my friends. A few months later, I was lying in bed, tired as hell, but I couldn't sleep. I started to feel like I'm finally falling asleep, and I looked at the clock. It was 3:30 a.m. I turned over on my stomach, and there was something there, blacker than black, darker than dark. It was just staring at me from the corner where my nightlight was. The light seemed to do nothing but disappear into it, if that makes any sense. I stared back, not believing what I was looking at. I realized that this was an entity, and this was really happening, so I did the only thing that I could think of. After watching scary movies and some paranormal shows, I learned to say, "Leave this house. You have no power here or over me. Leave me and my family alone." Nothing happened. It just stood there, and I got the feeling that it was laughing at me. And then I heard a voice, a low, rumbly voice. The reply was no. It was calm and flat. This kind of made me angry, so I repeated my order. Now remember, I'm 13 or 14 years old, so I decided I would call it a name. And that's when the eyes came back, and I felt everything in the house shake, and I couldn't move. I was laying in bed, and I just couldn't move. I tried to talk, but I couldn't. I wanted to scream and yell and to run, but I just couldn't even turn away. And then I heard it actually laugh. It was audible. To me, it was the deepest, most evil laugh I've ever heard. It seemed to be what was making the house shake. And then I noticed that it had something white in its hand. To me, it looked like a knife. A pure white knife. Almost like a dagger from a video game. But it seemed to glow. The shaking and the laughing stopped, and it moved closer to me. I still couldn't move. I couldn't even look away. I felt like I couldn't even close my eyes. Then this thing, it began to stab me all over my body with that white light. I felt like I could actually feel this knife enter and leave my body. And it felt like I had blood all over me. I knew that I didn't, but it really felt real. And as it stabbed me in my chest and I couldn't move, I felt this pressure. I just couldn't move. I heard it say, "You're not allowed to die yet. You still have a purpose for me, for the one above and the one below. You are going to serve." It didn't make any sense at all. And then I started hearing running footsteps across the house. I knew it was my mom coming to help me. I was relieved until I heard it say that it was going to return before disappearing. My mom came running through the door, asking if I was okay and what happened. I just started crying. Then I see my stepdad come around the corner, and he's asking what happened. I finally stopped crying, and my stepdad asked the question again. Now this is weird. My mom started explaining the whole thing like she was in the room with me. Everything, like she was standing there and she heard and saw it all. My stepdad scoffed, and he said to her quietly, "Impossible." I heard him though, and I said, "It's true." And that's exactly what happened. He just turned and he went to bed. My mom went and she grabbed a cross that used to hang above her bed, and she put it above mine. She also placed another cross in my dresser, where I just had a bunch of random stuff, and she told me not to touch it, ever, not even the drawer, until she said it was okay. And then she lied down in the bed with me. I don't think I slept for a few days after that. Finally, I eventually started sleeping again, and my mom stopped sleeping in my room at night. I started having the most terrible feelings in my room when I was alone. I would wake up with the worst feeling of dread and unhappiness and sadness, to the point where I'd be crying when I would just wake up. And I'd go to my mom's room and she already knew there was something wrong. That happened to me for about a year. I was laying in my bed once, texting a girl from my class, a girl that I really liked, and then I suddenly got the feeling that something was wrong. I looked around the room and I didn't see anything, nothing weird, nothing different. But I texted her that I had this weird feeling that something bad is going on. She texted back, "What do you mean?" I tried to text her a quick explanation, but even though I had service, the text wouldn't go through. And then my phone just shut off. Then I heard what sounded like my stepdad running through the house. He burst through the open door and he asks if I'm okay. I told him yes. And then he asked, "What just happened?" And I said, "Nothing, I just can't sleep." He looked terrified to me. I only saw him like this once after our car accident when I was 10. He said that he saw a large being in the hallway, darker than dark, blacker than black. It looked at him with eyes that were pure white. And he told me to go to get into the bed with my mom, and that he would stay awake that night. He went and he sat on the couch in the family room, which looked directly into his bedroom, and he just sat there with the table light on all night long. I fell asleep, and when I woke up, my stepdad was sleeping as well, with a magazine in his hands. My mom was in the kitchen making lunches for work and school. She asked what happened and why that he was sleeping on the couch, so I told her everything, including how my phone was acting up. She scolded me about the phone, but she was glad that everything was okay. So I went to the bus stop. While at school, my mom texted that she took my clothes to my grandparents' house and that they're going to pick me up early from school. They picked me up and they had a whole new set of school clothes for me. My grandma told me to change in the garage, and she took my clothes that I was wearing and put them in a paper bag. My mom came by a few hours later and told me that she didn't want me in the house, at least for a few days, and that her and my stepdad were going to do some things in the house. I said okay. The next day was supposed to be the day that all of my friends and I were going to play Call of Duty over the Xbox. So I texted my mom telling her that I was going to my friend's house after school to do homework and play video games. But I went home to play the Xbox. I walked in and it felt weird to me. The cats were all in the garage, seemed like they were hiding. It felt depressing and sad in there, like no one has been in there for days. But the litter box was clean and the cat's food dishes were all full. I picked up my cat and I tried to bring him into the house, but he wouldn't have any part of it. So I just let him be and I went to go play Xbox with my friends. I started it up and it started to rain. I played maybe a handful of games before I got hungry. I told my friends that I'd be back and I went to the kitchen. But when I came back, the TV and my Xbox were completely off and everything was put away. I know I didn't do that when I left, so it was weird. But I just turned it back on and I pulled out my controller and I went to get something to drink. I stopped dead in my tracks. There it was, standing in the hallway. It just stared at me. Its eyes opened. I dropped everything I had in my hands, and I ran to the closest door, which was the sliding glass door. It was unlocked, but it wouldn't budge. Not at all. This thing slowly walked down the hall. I just gave up on the door and I ran into my parents' bedroom. I was literally going to crawl out the window. It was moving slowly, but it was now in between the kitchen and the hall, so I couldn't make it to the front door. The window, it wouldn't budge. I just stood there and I started crying, and this thing came closer and closer. So slowly it walked closer to me. It stood in the middle of the floor with a gap between it and the couch. I was so scared that I just took off toward it. I jumped onto the couch and I stepped onto the kitchen counter and I jumped off and I ran to the front door, right past it. I unlocked the door and I kept trying and trying. Door wouldn't move. I turned around and it was still moving towards me at a normal walking pace. My cat was hiding under the end table and I could see it was watching me. I grabbed my cat with the only thought in my head that I was going to die and I didn't want to be alone. It started coming closer. It was picking up speed and coming faster. My cat started hissing and growling, and the thing just stood there. My cat wiggled free from my arms, jumped away, stared at the entity, and backed away slightly. I grabbed for the phone in my pocket. I tried to call my mom, my stepdad, and my grandparents, but none of the calls would go through. The thing was just standing there, and it was staring at my cat. I heard it hiss, kind of like a snake. It turned away, and it slowly walked away and disappeared. My cat stood there, hissing the whole time until it was gone, and then ran off to my bedroom. I tried to call my mom. None of the calls were going through. I tried the door again. It still didn't work. I called my grandmother. That call didn't go through. The next thing I know, I hear knocking. I was so startled. Then I heard the keys going into the door. I yelled, "It's unlocked, but it's not opening," eagerly waiting to see somebody that I knew, a friendly face. And then in came my grandparents. They told me that they answered every time that I called them. And my mom told them to go to their house immediately because she had a bad feeling. When they got there, I told them what happened. It was about a half hour later, and my mom finally came home. And she told me that there was a reason that she did not want me in that house. She yelled at me and she scolded me, but thank God that I was okay. I explained what happened, and she sent my grandparents home and told me that she was going to have the house blessed, but now she decided to have me blessed as well. The person who was going to do the blessing showed up. He said that his name was Michael. My mom asked him if he could bless me as well, and his reply was that everyone and everything that was in the house would be blessed, but people would be last. He said that he needed all of our help, and this is what he told us to say. "This is the Lord's house. This is God's house. This house is in God's protection, and if you don't belong to God, leave. You are not welcome here. Leave and go back to where you came from. You are not welcome." He did that throughout the house. He even blessed the cats and my mom. My stepdad got home right after he blessed my mom, so he blessed him too. He got me set up in a chair, and he started to bless me, and this voice came out of nowhere. To me, it sounded like it was behind me. But Michael said not to turn around. The voice was the same that I had heard. It said this one had sinned before. Sinned when he already had many chances. He has another chance, so why let him become a sinner? That is what he was created for. Sinning. Michael continued on, and I think he was speaking Latin, but later my mom told me that it was something else. Another old ancient language, and I don't remember which. The voice started again. And it said roughly the same thing. The voice added, "This one may not be a sinner, but you let him live, and he will become one. You all know it. Let me have him. Let his power be my power, and I shall leave all of you alone. Quit protecting him, and just give him to me, and I'll let him at least decide where he'll go when it's all over." Then it screamed. Then it stopped, and the horrible feeling that I had left immediately. No more bad feeling, or sadness, or dread. Michael finished his blessing and said that he has only ever seen this once before, but in that case he said that he was called too late, and he found nothing but evil inside the house. It's now 6 years later. As I type this, I've been thinking about it because I hate to even say it, but I think I've been seeing it around. After 5 or more years of not having it bother me, I'm terrified that it's back. If you want to hear more, just let me know, because I have several more occurrences dealing with this thing. And I've looked, but I just can't find any information on it. So in the off chance that anybody knows anything, it would be real helpful if someone would let me know what I'm dealing with. If anyone has any information, please, it would be so helpful. I just want to know what it is that I'm dealing with.